Tape is recording. Stand by. Okay.
Hello and welcome to Community Watch. And today we'll be discussing the 34th annual Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Weekend. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this.
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome to Community Watch. Greg.
Doug.
Hey. So we've done a show on this event a couple of times.
Yeah, a couple.
A couple of times. But not 34 times.
Not 34, but we're in the double digits, I think.
Okay. Well, of course, we'll get all the details on the event when our guest, Alvin Jackson, comes out in a little bit. But this is, and has been, I think, for a long time, one of the busiest weekends to commemorate the King holiday anywhere.
Yeah, I think it's one of, maybe the only 4-day celebration, I think, anywhere. But it's clearly a lot of activity over those 4 days.
Well, I'm curious to hear Mr. Jackson tell us a little bit about the evolution of that weekend, because I do think now, well, certainly after a few years, it becomes a tradition. I don't know what you call it now, but it is something that Rome really needs to be proud of.
Well, you know, you're absolutely right, something Rome to be proud of, but I'm curious to if there's any, besides the 4 days, take into consideration what we're dealing with now. Because I mean, a lot of people are asking, have we moved back some? Have we taken some steps back, especially when it comes to race relations? Mm-hmm. What can we do now? Because I mean, in honoring King, really it's about honoring, it's doing his work. And some would argue more than any time. We really need to be doing the work now with the climate we have in America in some areas. So it'd be some interesting dialogue.
Well, sounds like we need to get the man out here. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will have Mr. Alvin Jackson join us when we get back. So don't go away.
Your life is filled with opportunities to show the world you can take charge. It's waking up each day with a mission. It's working each day toward a goal. It's choosing to rise. It's charging forward with a purpose. It's changing the course of your life and taking charge of your future. If you're ready to be a Take Charger, enroll at Georgia Highlands College today.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We're very happy to have with us Mr. Alvin Jackson. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, you are now, I mean, you were in charge of like multiple things in the city now besides being the key ongoing leader of this event. You are on the Board of Education.
Yes.
And how long have you been on the board now?
2 years. This is my first term.
And who knows what all else you have going on, but
Yes,
you
I-
have got to be
Go ahead.
the one of the busiest men in the city.
He is a lifetime member of the 100 Black Men in Rome.
Lifetime member.
Yes.
Wow, that's good.
I'm trying to get there.
Well, I know that I know that you have been there since the beginning of,
Yes.
of this. You had to have been like 2 years old, but you were working very hard, even at that age. But tell us a little bit. We'll get into the particulars of the weekend, but tell us a little bit about the evolution of this weekend. First of all, is it the only 4-day?
4 consecutive days of celebration in the state.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
It is.
Tell us a little bit about the evolution of this weekend from the beginning to now. How has it changed, or has it grown, or not? How has it developed over this period of time?
Well, as you may know, back around 1985, I think it was Ronald Reagan who signed the proclamation stating that the third Monday in January would be Martin Luther King Observance Day. So here in Rome and Floyd County, several of us got together, ministers, community leaders, different organizations, and we went to the City Commission, Rome City Commission, and asked them to support it and make it a local holiday. At that time, I think it cost around $35,000 to let the employees off. And it took us anywhere from 4 to 6 hours that night because there was a 4-4 tie amongst the City Commission as to whether they would approve it or not. So we sat there, we went back and forth and back and forth. And Buddy Mitchell, who was the chairman at that time, he said, well, enough is enough. We're gonna do it. And he was the deciding vote to make it a holiday here in Rome and Floyd County.
Mm. And were there, how soon after that were there events on the King holiday?
That next year, we formed a committee, and we moved ahead with plans to have the celebration that next year. And it was interesting because I can tell you a little bit even about the march, and I'll never forget it because the first march we had, it snowed, and there was a lot of sleet and ice on the ground, and there were 5 people who marched up Broad Street. None of the businesses were closed. There was a lot of name calling and people giving you the middle finger and a lot of threats made. My life was threatened several times. But we persevered. We marched on, we moved on, and now it's become a real big holiday here in Rome and Floyd County.
You know, I'm curious, Alvin, when you talk about it was a 4-4 tie, and I don't know for what reason people was voting against it, but with Dr. King, as with, I guess, probably no other period in the civil rights era, everybody nowadays act like they were just always for it. You know, like it was just not even a no-brainer, but clearly it was a 4-4 tie. And I'm quite, and as you said, some of the residents wasn't too happy about it. So clearly things have changed over the years. But do you see in the many roles that you serve that we're still dealing with some of that underbelly here in Rome?
Yes, yes. It's just in a different form. I mean, racism, and we're divided to a certain degree on different levels in society here in Rome and Floyd County. And there are a lot of organizations that's trying to bridge that. But I do think we still have a long way to go. I mean, we still, for those of us who respect Dr. King and his ideas, there's a lot of work to be done. It's going to take all of us working together and pulling together to get that done.
So from the very beginnings of this weekend to now, I mean, I'm guessing that it was not a 4-day event back in the early years. Did it grow into that, or did it start that?
Yes, it grew into that. We had started out looking at what we could do for the weekend, and we got together with our churches and things of that nature. And John and Lena Stevenson came up with the idea of adding a prayer breakfast. So And then, you know, we moved on from there. So it became 4 consecutive days of celebration because we wanted people to realize, you know, 4 days to me is not enough because it needs to be, really needs to be honored every day. I mean, he left something all of us could be proud of. But it's evolved, and I think we're doing quite well now.
Have you noticed any, I guess, difference in the importance of the events the last few years, where issues seem to be increasing nationally in terms of racism, and I just wonder if those events have mattered more in recent years?
I think so. It's raised the consciousness of people. You know, we look at our political situation, we look at our religious situation here, and I think these events will sort of hit on all of that. Good example, Reverend Robert Brown is a keynote speaker at the prayer breakfast. Well, he's a minister at First United Methodist Church, and I was just reading yesterday or today about some decision he's going to have to make about the LGBT community, on how the church is going to split. And I'm curious to hear what he has to say about that. But clearly we have a long way to go. And I think some of the things, the speakers that we have are going to touch on those the entire weekend.
Alvin, as we talk about this in the 4-day event, is there a plan, I guess, even as you talk about it, because we need to be doing this every day. So is there a plan, or what can we be doing to continue with this? Not necessarily in a formal matter, but what can we do? Because I think you're correct that we don't want Dr. King Day ever to become or the 4-day weekend ever to become just an event. It's really about living it day to day. So what, with your vast experience, what can we be doing as a community to embrace or identify or even live some of these practices? What can we do differently, I guess?
I think the key is going to be communication. I think that we've got to sit down and have that open discussion about these issues that we have, whether it be racism or whatever. But the key to me is open dialogue, sitting down, having that discussion. I mean, we all have different ideas. We come from different backgrounds. And I find that in the many organizations that I'm involved in, there are many different personalities. And I respect the person who speaks out and has their own thoughts. But we really need to communicate that amongst each other and set forth a plan to move ahead with Dr. King's vision and his dream that all men are created equal. We all our blood is red, so what's the difference?
You know, I know we're getting close, but as I think about, and this happens every year, we talk about this. When you look at Rome has a plethora of nonprofit organizations that's doing a lot of great work. But from my perspective, it seems to be that there's still a lot of disconnect, that a lot of us are doing very, very similar work, if not the same work, but we're not doing it collectively, that we're all doing it in our own sort of little areas. And I'm just wondering, is that not part of our problem, that we're not connected? We have some of the same ideas, but we still are not, for whatever reason, coming together as a group.
I agree. I definitely agree. Because like you say, we're all working, and it seems like we have our own agenda. And sometimes I think people are trying to outdo one another. And that's a sad situation because there's so many problems. There's enough for everybody to do. It's just coming together and having that conversation and coming up with a plan. I think a plan is, you know, we got to have a plan, whether it be addressing homelessness, whether it be addressing the political arena. And one thing that, as I get older, that I'm beginning to realize is that we have to pass this knowledge on. We have to get our young people involved. They need to know the story. And until we realize that, until we come together, then I'm so afraid that all this is going to go away. It just bothers me every day.
Well, we are coming up shortly on a break, but I do want to ask you, and we may have to wait till after the break to get your response, but I do want to ask a little more details about the King Commission, because I know they work very hard on this organization. So we need to know a little bit more about that organization. But we do have to take a break here. Stay with us, though. We have a lot more discussion to come, and do not go away.
The color in my garden keeps the pink in my cheeks. I was very independent and thought I could take care of myself. I fell and I had to have Meals on Wheels. They're my savior. My name is Lola Silvestri. America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We're having a conversation with Mr. Alvin Jackson about the King Holiday Weekend celebration, the only 4 consecutive day celebration in the state of Georgia, something Rome really needs to be proud of. So tell us a little bit about the King Commission. I don't know, I mean, the holiday weekend started out as through a committee. Is that committee, is that what developed into what is now the King Commission?
Yes. There's no membership fee. We meet the 3rd Monday in every month, 7 p.m. at the KB Center, and we invite people to come in. We invite people to come in and help us, because it's 4-day celebration. It's really a lot of work. I mean, you have to start on it in February. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of planning. We're always open to new energy and new ideas, and we definitely need it. And we just want to get more people involved, particularly our young people. If you notice, we reach across racial lines. It's not just, and I've heard it so many times, you know, this is just a black thing. It's not that. We have our ecumenical service. We're diverse in that. We're moving it around. Our speakers are diverse. And, you know, I hate, because I have people say that sometime and question me about it. And I say, no, we're about Dr. King, and he was about everybody. And that's the message we have to get out.
How large is the commission now?
We have really, and the numbers vary, I would say 15 to 20 people come in every month and help us out, help us plan things, help us get started. And so I would say it averages around 15, 20 people per month.
That's good.
Really good. You know, I'm thinking about, and for me it's just, I guess, because Dr. King is such an icon. But I wonder sometimes, and you would know this more than anybody, are we teaching our young people Dr. King in his true sense of the word? What I mean by that is, I'm afraid that too many of our young people, and too many people in general, all they know is, I have a dream. That's it. That's all they really know. They don't know anything really past that. I don't think people, if people talk about nonviolence, but I don't think they realize how Dr. King was nonviolent, but he had some very controversial and challenging ideas. And I don't know that we're teaching that anymore. I don't know that Dr. King hasn't been reduced to just a slogan for a lot of our young people. If you ask him, I have a dream speech. And that wasn't even really the name of the speech. But so in your experience, are we doing a great job of teaching who Dr. King really was and what he really meant to the world?
No, I don't think we are. I really don't. It's like a generational thing. I came up during the Civil Rights Movement. I was involved. I know what it means to be offended or cursed. I even had feces thrown on me. None of our young people or the generation that came behind me really realized that. I mean, I couldn't go into the Crystal. I couldn't go into Burger King. Certain places downtown, I had to go on a Saturday. My parents would take me on a Saturday. And you tried on your shoes. You had to bring your own socks. But if you tried on that shoe, you had to leave with it. So they often bought your shoes a size and a half larger. So people don't realize, what we've been through. But even here in Rome, I mean, like I said, I was threatened. I had the KKK threaten me. I had, all this hate mail sent to me and everything because when this started. But, You know, it's up to people like me to pass this on. It's up to all of us to instill this in our children. My grandchildren and children have no idea. When I talk to them about it, they sort of smile and say, oh, you know, this wasn't nothing. But that was then, and this is now. And although we've come a long way, we still have a long way to go. So I think we all need to share that responsibility to make sure that we instill this dream in our children, will never die.
Now, see, now you hit on something that I find very interesting. Because, like, again, this is my perspective. I think we sometimes are the only people that we don't want to make other people uncomfortable in talking about. We want to talk about these relationships we have now, like we just so buddy-buddy. But we don't want to talk about what it takes to get there. And without teaching that, I think we lose something. But if you look at other communities, they are very frank about making sure you understand their history and how they got to where they are. But it's almost like when we talk about Dr. King, we only want to talk about nonviolence and his Have a Dream speech, but we don't want to talk about the context in which that came about. And a lot of that still exists. And so if we're not teaching and I'm not even going to say young people, because there's a lot of people younger than me, but in my peer group who I don't think realize some of this. If we're not teaching this, then are we not somewhat setting ourselves up for failure as we move forward?
I agree, and you're absolutely right. That's when I say we all have that responsibility to make sure that our children understand that, to connect them with their history, to let them know where they came from. And there's so many organizations, and I feel sometimes, that overlook this. It's like we're in a comfort zone. You know, how did we get here? Nobody really knows the story unless you sit down and talk about it. Nobody really cares, it seems, because things are so comfortable now. But, you know, like I say, we still have a way to go. There's still a lot of work out there. I look at Elijah Cummings, I look at John Lewis, I look at those individuals who I looked up to when I was coming up. I look up to Dr. King because I heard him speak, and that's what I think it instilled in me, to pick up that torch and keep marching. Whether people like it or not, I mean, it's there. And we have to keep this dream going. I worry about the 4-day celebration. After me, who's going to take it over? I mean, who's going to, when I'm gone, or where's that young person that's going to be committed enough to get out and do this work, make sure that this gets done every year? I don't want it to die.
Yeah.
You know, the march itself that takes place on Monday, it has great symbolic value. I don't know, and you'll have to explain to us what the intent was of doing an actual march as part of the celebration. But I believe for a lot of the students that I deal with, you know, it's who have not protested anything formally. I mean, they complain a good bit, but they've never actually protested or marched or boycotted or any of those things that show that they're willing to protest actively. It's what Dr. King used to call direct action. But I'm wondering, in that, the march itself, which is from one end of Broad Street to the other, what was your original intent in starting that tradition?
Well, I remember I marched back in 1964. I was a young teenager when we had the first march in here, the first sit-ins here in Rome and Floyd County, and I know I participated in that. Like I say, there were feces thrown on me. There were threats made. There were a lot of arrests, curfews, and things of that nature. And when we created the march, it was a tool that Dr. King used, a nonviolent tool. And from my train of thought, it gave everyday people an opportunity to participate, to give back. It doesn't cost anything. It's just a walk up Broad Street, but it makes you feel so good. Makes you feel like you were there, you were a part of Dr. King's dream. And we have a diverse group of people. Like I said, it started with 5 people that first year. And there was a lot of heckling. None of the stores were closed. There were people standing in Atlanta Gas Light Company calling me the N-word and shooting me birds and things like that. But it didn't stop us from marching with 5 people. And one of the gentlemen at that time, a young man by the name of Mr. Maurice, he said, "Alvin, I'm going to march with you." And he always wore a plaid coat. But you'd be surprised at what he had under that plaid coat. Yeah, you'd be surprised. And he said, "Don't worry about nothing, we're going to march." He's dead and gone now, but that man marched with me every year. And now you have such a diverse group of individuals who participate in the march. You have our city commissioners, you have our hospital presidents. You have just a tremendous amount of people. And I was asking John Quinn Living, he's a very big supporter. He said, "Alvin, I thought this was important." So he brings his children and his grandchildren to march with him every year. Judge Pullen told me the same thing. He marched with me every year that we had this. So it makes you feel like, you know, you're contributing and you're giving back. And I think it's just a tool that Dr. King used. And look at the people who marched with him. They were just everyday people, and they were very proud to do that.
Well, we only have a couple of minutes left, so we really should go through the events of the weekend, at least briefly. There's an extravaganza on Friday night?
Yes, and that'll be at 6:30 at the City Auditorium, and that's free.
Okay. In fact, everything is free except the prayer breakfast.
Yes, yes.
The prayer breakfast is Saturday morning at 8:30, and that's at Lovejoy, correct?
Yes, Lovejoy Baptist Church Life Center. Great speaker.
And I don't think there are many tickets left, are there?
No, they're going really, really fast.
But they're available at Kroger?
They're available at Kroger. You can contact myself, Miss Sunday Stevenson. We have a couple other people on the flyer you can contact.
Okay. Sunday there's a service, and this year it's at Garden Lakes Baptist.
Yes, Reverend Timothy McDonald, he's the keynote speaker for that.
And that's 5 p.m.
Yes.
Correct? And then Monday, the actual holiday, the march that we've been talking about, people start gathering around 11 o'clock.
Yes.
At the south end of Broad Street.
Yes, the corner of Broad and First Avenue.
Right there by Southeastern Mill.
Yes.
And immediately after, there's a program at Rome City Auditorium, and the speaker this year is Meredith Lilly, is that correct? And then there's a lunch following.
Yes.
All right, so that's
fellowship luncheon.
That's at the Civic Center.
Yes.
Well, we have got to take another quick break, but we'll give a rundown when we come back. Do not go away.
Your life is filled with opportunities to show the world you can take charge. It's waking up each day with a mission. It's working each day toward a goal. It's choosing to rise. It's charging forward with a purpose. It's changing the course of your life and taking charge of your future. If you're ready to be a Take Charger, enroll at Georgia Highlands College today.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We've been talking with Alvin Jackson about the King Holiday Weekend Celebration. 4 days of events, Friday through Monday. And I know that you can find out information that we've covered on Hometown Headlines and in the paper. And you can certainly contact Mr. Jackson or Sunday Stevenson for more details. But I appreciate everything you do, and I'm looking forward to the weekend.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. And thank you for being with us. Thank you for joining us. We'll see many of you out there this weekend for the King celebration. See you next time on Community Watch.